Hey there, eCommerce Fastlane listeners. I want to take a quick moment and give a shout out to an amazing sponsor, Absolute Web. Now, if you're looking for a powerhouse team to take your Shopify store to the next level, then look no further. Absolute Web is a full-service design and e-commerce development agency. They've been pushing the boundaries of what's possible on Shopify for over 2 decades. Now, whether you need a highly customized design that truly sets your brand apart, a complex integration to kind of streamline your operations, or even a complete site implementation from the ground up, Absolute Web has got you covered. Now, they have an in-house team of UI and UX designers. They have architects. They really are the go-to all-in-one solution for e-commerce brands that really want results and they want them now. And get this, if you're currently on another platform and you're considering to make the switch to Shopify, the experts at Absolute Web have deep experience in migrations too. They'll make the process smooth and painless, and you can start reaping all the benefits of being on Shopify. So if you're ready to build, optimize, or even scale a high-converting e-commerce storefront, head on over to absoluteweb.com and you can learn more about their extensive technical and creative e-commerce services. That's absoluteweb.com. And now back to the show.
You're listening to eCommerce Fastlane, the podcast show to help you build, manage, grow, and scale a successful and thriving company, powered by Shopify. Listen to real conversations with partners and subject matter experts as they share proven practical strategies, platforms, and the best Shopify apps to help you accelerate your business. The time is now for you to improve efficiencies, grow revenue, profit, and lifetime customer loyalty. Please welcome your host, startup founder, and strategic advisor, Steve Hutt.
Well, hey there, welcome back to eCommerce Fastlane. I'm your host, Steve Hutt. Thanks so much for tuning in today. There's so many podcasts out there to choose from, and I truly appreciate the fact that you're picking today's episode. You're going to gain a lot of insights, a lot of inspiration, both from a merchant itself and from a provider, a financial provider in the Shopify ecosystem. My guest today is, I have 2 guests, but first is Andrew Curtis. He's the CEO of Clearco. Now, Clearco, what they are is they're the leading fintech company that really provides non-dilutive revenue sharing agreements, and they really help e-commerce businesses to grow. They originally were founded under the ClearBank brand in 2015 with a headquarters in Toronto, but Clearco now has been kind of rebranded. We'll talk about that kind of story in a few minutes, but now they've invested over $2.5 billion in more than 10,000 businesses. Now, Andrew took over as CEO of Clearco, I believe in late of 2022. And we're bringing a lot of his experience, both in finance and leadership, really to help guide the company now through a very interesting period right now in the tech sector. Now, under his leadership, Clearco now has really remained focused on their mission to provide fast and flexible funding to e-commerce brands when, I'd argue, sometimes traditional financing options like the bank and that are just not available. And so Clearco now has a lot of offers. We'll talk about it in a few minutes, but between $10 and up to $10 million. It's very quick to analyze a business's kind of financial health and their revenue potential. And the company really prides themselves on really taking out a lot of the biases from funding process and really helping support a very diverse range of founders. My other guest on the show today is going to be Tim Marinello, and he's actually the COO of a company called The Adventure Challenge, and they're at theadventurechallenge.com. So I'd like to welcome you both to eCommerce Fastlane.
Thanks, Steve. Glad to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Steve.
I think we should probably jump in with Andrew first, and maybe I'd love to hear a little bit of the story about how you learned about the Clearco business and why you have made some decision, number one, to become the CEO, and then what sort of pivot has happened from the ClearBank business now being pivoted over to the Clearco business?
Sure. So Clearco was founded in the mid-teens, and we created the revenue-based finance category for e-com merchants. So that's, we're the first. We have lots of imitators today, or some imitators today. I became familiar with Clearco when I joined as an advisor to the company in July 2022, when the company was going through some important changes. And one of the changes that we undertook back then was a pivot to what we call today invoice funding, which is a little bit different from our prior product. It's still revenue-based finance, but our prior product was known as a cash and bank revenue-based finance. So customer or an e-com would come to us and they would, they'd want capital from us, and we would run our nifty machine learning-based tools to determine what they might be able to fund with us. And we gave them a single number and they used that number as they saw fit. Today, the product has changed, still revenue-based finance, but today, customers come to us. The process is much the same at the beginning, but in the end, what we're actually doing for them is paying discrete invoices. And so those invoices might be to a marketing partner like Meta or Google, or it might be to an inventory partner. So an e-com customer that we have needs to pay for inventory overseas and get that inventory delivered. They can use Clearco Capital for myriad ways, but it's a very specific use. So when a customer is going to use Clearco, he knows exactly what he's using the capital for. And in that way, we've migrated from what I would describe as more of a traditional cash in bank MCA, where you're just getting a lump sum of money and you're using it over time in whatever ways you determine you need to.
I see. What's interesting, though, when I was with Shopify, I know financing was a major problem for a lot of businesses. And, I know at one point, Shopify decided, hey, well, maybe we can use some of the data that we have. When I say we, when I was back with the business. And, they would offer their Shopify Capital. And there was a few other partners out there. The challenge that we found was the rates. A lot of pushback. And maybe as successful as that product was, there was a lot of pushback from merchants saying that, fair enough, you don't have to have a finite a date when the financing can be paid off, and it's a percentage of sales, and you qualify for X number of dollars. The reality was, if you actually were to look at the true amount of extra, and you signed a contract for this, if you got $100,000, they would say the cost of borrowing, and they would put a finite amount of money at the end of that. And no matter how long it took you to pay that back, you had a finite amount of money that was forced into that contract. So how does that compare to the way that Clearco is saying, hey, I have an invoice and you're going to pay it on behalf of the merchant? How is that different than other kind of traditional kind of market or lenders out there like Shopify Capital, for example, where they're chunking on a big chunk of money onto it and then giving a certain amount of time to pay that off?
Yeah, so I think the biggest difference is when in the example you described, let's just call that the cash and bank revenue-based finance model. When someone extends that kind of capital to you, call it $100. So you connect your revenue accounts to our platform. We run analytics. We tell you we're willing to advance you $100. You start paying for that capital as soon as we tell you what the number is and you sign the contract. Now, you may not be using that $100 immediately, but there's a cost to that capital on day one. And so whether it was Clearco in the old days or Shopify Capital currently, because they still have the same product, as soon as you give the merchant that number and you give access to that capital, you don't know how quickly they're going to deploy it. He may not know how quickly he's going to deploy it, but there's a cost to the capital on day one. The way our product works today is there's no cost to the capital until it's deployed, and deployed for a very specific use, meaning to pay a specific invoice. So I have a Google bill. I need to pay it. I upload the invoice. Clearco pays Google directly. And then at that point, I start paying Clearco back and I incur the cost of that capital. But those dollars have been put to use at that day for a specific use.
I see. One thing I love too about Clearco, I did some research and dealing with kind of Sam on the team. And what I found quite interesting is the fact that Clearco is also providing the portfolio of companies that they work with a lot of resources. Like I would think a network of advisors or some mentors. There's even, getting founders together. I find that quite interesting that they're expanding their offering kind of beyond capital. It almost feels like there's this long-term kind of partnership with clients to kind of support their success. So, Andrew, do you have any comments on that and why that is happening? And I can see the benefits of it, but it seems interesting for fintech companies to even offer that level of kind of community.
Yeah, I think our view is if I take a step back, what is Clearco's mission and what is Clearco's North Star? Our North Star is to provide capital so e-commerce businesses can grow. But what we find is our customers and our founders, they can use all kinds of advice. So while our core product today is the invoice funding product, and that's the capital product, what we want to do is we want to find all kinds of ways to support and help our founders or our e-commerce business owners grow their businesses. And so sometimes that has a lot to do with capital that we provide them. But as you know, and as we all know, small business growth can be tough, and starting a small business can be tough. And we look at these entrepreneurs and these founders as like, really doing God's work, which is, they're passionate about something, a product, a service. They believe that there's strong demand for it. They want the world to have access to it. And so they're trying to find ways to turn a vision or a dream into reality. And there are lots of ways you can support that. I think capital is a big part of that, especially in the current environment where, the days of easy credit and easy money are well behind us. And we live in a high interest rate environment today. So, our core offering is capital and always will be, but there are lots of other things that we can do for founders.
That's lovely. Well, it's a nice pivot. Maybe we can chat with Tim for a few minutes so Tim, can you tell us a little bit of the story behind the adventurechallenge.com, the business, and talk about how you met the team at Clearco. And let's talk about maybe what was life like before Clearco and what you were doing, and then meeting them and start working with them and getting these invoices settled. How has that actually impacted your business?
Yeah, Steve, thanks so much for the question and having me on. We're a 6-year-old business. Fortunately, we're started pre-pandemic, and I think the pandemic was very helpful for our business because we are a scratch-off adventure book company. So predominantly specializing in couples. So our North Star and our mission in life is to inspire human connection. And that human connection can come in your relationship with your spouse, with your kids, with your family. And we've got different products for different relationships that are important to you. And so the growth that we saw initially was beautiful. And it was something that was every startup's dream. Really was around year 3 that we saw the need for the fact that, hey, this is actually a very seasonal business. And we could either use, our cash, or we can start building a robust financial partnership network that allows us to grow intelligently with the right type of capital. And that's where we started to just broaden our relationships, and we're introduced to Clearco and Andrew's team. And we've used essentially the funding for a host of different reasons. Just like you guys were mentioning, growth isn't linear. It's not always up and to the right. And especially for e-com, an iOS update or some other hurdle in the market can temporarily take the wind out of our sails. And when you have those types of factors, as well as a high seasonality, we're not a traditional banking dream, right? We need additional funding sources that don't have the requirements that traditional banks have. And so that's where Clearco has been very helpful in us being able to use it. We've expanded after year 3 internationally. So we're in 34 countries. And we pivoted to beyond Shopify and our D2C site to Amazon as a heavy producer for us, as well as into retail. And so being in brick and mortar, all of those different avenues to market give us different opportunities and challenges. And so we've used our relationship with Clear for, marketing, inventory, growth, you name it. And, one of the benefits that Andrew mentioned is very real to us. We want to be able to pay the cost of the capital once it's deployed, and Clearco is a great partner for that exact purpose.
Yeah, and it was interesting too about the whole marketing side. I'm finding right now, because I've been doing a lot of marketing podcasts recently, and I think from a merchant's perspective, they've been quite concerned as of late about this cookie apocalypse that's potentially going to happen. It's been pushed back again, and like you said, the iOS 14.5 upgrade, and it's it seems like Apple is kind of really keeping things behind the fold a bit. And so, from your perspective, like being a merchant, because it's a hot topic right now, what are you doing to help improve your ROAS, or what are you doing to try, to your net new customer, your acquisition cost? Is there anything you can share? Maybe not the complete secret sauce, but is there anything that you've seen as saying, hey, we understand some of the challenges of attribution out there right now, but we've been successful doing this.
Right.
So whatever that is.
Yeah, I think because we're a unique product, we're essentially a date or an adventure hidden behind a lotto scratcher. And so you don't know what you're going to do until you agree to do it together. And then you have this, forever memory, and it changes people's lives. I was just at a customer's wedding that they used our book to, in their dating relationship and in their proposal, and to see, to be a part of that kind of intimate effect in somebody's relationship is something that's incredibly honoring for us as a brand. But you're absolutely right. I mean, we can't just keep looking at ROAS as the golden metric. It's, the data has to be trustworthy for that to be true. And data integrity has been a little bit questionable over the last few years. And so we've broadened, mainly into retail because it's a new avenue to meet the market. And that's been very helpful. We've also broadened partnerships and product development into just audiences. And so we've got a few really cool products coming out the second half of this year that are directly tied to market leaders in the connection space to help solve that problem. So those are a few of the ways that we've overcome that recently. Yeah, I hope that helps.
Yeah, it definitely does indeed. And I know, once again, channel expansion again, it's incredible to hear that, you're in Walmart and Target. And I think there's kind of traditional retail opportunity that's out there that you're spearheading into. And you've had a lot of notoriety being on the Ellen Show, and you've been published in a lot of places that I just see. So it's phenomenal kind of what you guys are working on. Can you talk a little bit about how these kind of retail deals came about? Like, is it something that you just literally just picked up the phone and just said, hey, I'm going to contact Walmart directly because we're being so successful online? We believe there's an opportunity here to be either in their digital property or to be actually on the shelf. And so I'm just curious to see, what was the mindset and execution around getting into retail?
Yeah, I think it's a yes and answer. So I think the reality is, a few years ago, it was a strategic initiative, right? So the leadership team said, hey, this is the direction we need to go to diversify our brand's health. And from there, I was able to put together a really great internal team. And we had Kohl's actually reach out to us directly. And so they were our first retail account. And we learned a lot from a direct management of that relationship. And we also hired a few retail advisors and came up with a formal strategy, and then deployed that strategy with the brands that we felt like we were the right fit at the right time. And we have a half dozen agency partners that help us manage the right buyers within retail. For me, I came from more of a B2B tech background and not retail. And retail, for those listening, it's not as simple. Some people have great success, reaching out to a buyer on LinkedIn or at a conference and sparking up a relationship that's successful. But the reality is, category owners within retail are working with hundreds, if not thousands, of brands. And so they're looking for agencies to essentially do the middleman work to support, the new brand that's looking to come on and be their helper in the process. And so, we interviewed a few dozen agencies. We made the decision to go with a few, and we've had the good fortune of really working with some great agency partners to help us get in the door. And we had to prove it. So we started with one logo or one SKU within each retailer. And Target, last year we had one, our flagship couples products or couples edition. And within 2 weeks, they said, hey, let's go store wide. So we started in 500 stores and went store wide. And then they added a second SKU, and we're launching our third SKU or travel edition this next month, and our fourth SKU at the end of the year. So it's a natural, account growth has to be well managed. We have to take the feedback from that single decision maker buyer of the department that your brand is in very seriously. And they've directed product development for us. They've influenced a whole lot of how we go to market because we want to be great partners with that retailer. And it's ultimately one voice within the retail organization that you want to be on shelf with. So that's been or at least part of our story.
Yeah, that's lovely. Thanks so much for sharing that. I'm curious about the Amazon effect. There's a halo obviously going on with Amazon. I've had quite a few Amazon tech people on lately and some agency partners. And, the conversation is, hey, 1 out of 2 transactions is happening on Amazon. Their organic search is phenomenal. So what's your take? I, quickly typed in the adventure challenge into Amazon and you come up and I see, 3,000 to 5,000 people bought this particular product in the last month. So clearly there's lots of people that are buying on Amazon. So how is your Amazon mix? What was the decision? Is it strictly because there's this baked in audience in Amazon and just is another channel that we just need to be in? Was that just the direction? Because some brands are a little bit hesitant to get on there. They feel they don't have any control over the brand play that goes along with it. So what's your take on being on Amazon, and are you finding it as successful as you would have hoped it would be?
I think that's a great question. I would say we're always looking to be more successful than we currently are. So the answer is
fair enough.
No, but we're very thankful for that business. And we've had the right advisors and agencies help us set up well and manage that. And it's just like any other channel, what our ad management within Amazon looks like on a daily and weekly and monthly basis affects revenue. Because we are a seasonal product, one of the hypotheses were, hey, could we even out the seasonality with a baked-in audience at Amazon to help flatten out our curve? And that's given us some level of diversification. But overall, it will always be a sizable percentage of our revenue. It's something that we watch carefully just because of the cost difference. And that's really it. We have a really strong agency that supports us there. And it's something that we look at our business through several lenses, and it's a key lens for us.
Lovely. Well, thanks so much for sharing that. I think it's part of this overall kind of multi-channel approach that I've been kind of touting for years at Shopify. It's just like, you likely should be on Amazon. Like, just type your brand in. For those listening today, if you're not on Amazon right now, type your brand name in. I guarantee you someone's pay-per-clicking against your branded term.
Yeah.
Clearly you guys are there and are doing well. So that's, and just the physical size of Amazon, it makes absolute sense to be there. And I'm glad that you're there. I think there's lots of other areas, I think, for future growth. Have you considered I know you're in Canada, but has there been much thought about truly internationalizing your brand to be around the world, like from your direct-to-consumer site?
Yeah, fortunate for us, we kind of got a jump start on that 3 years ago. So we opened up in English-speaking countries first. We got into Canada and Australia and the UK. And then about 18 months ago, we launched in the EU. And this month, we launched into Mexico. So we're constantly looking to shorten the lead time and cost to get our goods in the hands of people so that they can improve their connection with their loved ones. And some roads are easier internationally. Amazon's not the right partner in some regions of the world just because they're growing their business. But Amazon Canada is doing well for us. Amazon in Europe is growing. And so you just have to look at what the right, third-party site would be for us. And
depending on the market where you're,
exactly.
where you're attacking. It's interesting too. I used to recommend a lot with Shopify Markets, which is and there's a Markets Pro option too, which really helps with the duty and tax compliance kind of from within cart, and then localizing the currency, just making the checkout flow easy. As a Canadian, we typically buy from American sites, but it's so interesting. If there's not duty and tax in the cart, we always know, or you always see these silly disclaimers in the checkout flow that's saying, hey, we're not responsible for this potential duty and tax and brokerage bill that might arrive. Mm-hmm. No wonder the conversion rate is so much lower from Canadians, and I've proven this, from Canadians buying from American websites, unless you're being honest and transparent in cart by using Shopify Markets or their Markets Pro offering and actually showing duty and tax in cart.
Yeah, that's something that Markets was in beta, I think, 2 years ago. And so we were set up before that. And so we're constantly weighing, making that migration kind of back to more centralized approach. But we just have essentially 6 stores that we manage and factor that into the in-cart experience.
Beautiful. So, Andrew, I got to ask you a question about the whole funding process, because I understand that you're using, some AI, I think, to remove a little bit of the biases that go along with, and then you're able to, I guess, almost support a very, I call it like maybe a diverse range of founders. I mean, women-owned businesses, people of color, just, marginalized kind of people. It's like, I find it very interesting that Clearco really does have a mission to support like all entrepreneurs, regardless of kind of where they fit and their complexity, their maturity. And so I just would love your feedback about like, how do you see Clearco kind of impacting that? And then, is it something that fintech in general is being more open to it, or is there something very unique that Clearco wants to make sure that they're available for anyone who requires capital when the time is right and deployed when the time is right?
Yeah, I think you touch on a key aspect of our business. It's always really been the case, and that is, we advance capital without regard to a founder's gender or ethnicity or race or socioeconomic background. Like our goal really, and you touched on it, it's a function of the machine models that we use.
Right.
Our goal is to find sound businesses that we think are being run well, that have a great idea, whose financial performance we believe makes them credit worthy. Because the thing for Clearco, again, the North Star is always to serve these businesses and to be the fuel for their growth and to provide capital that can help them grow rapidly. But for Clearco to be sustainable, when we send capital out, we want to make sure it comes back. So we rely on these models that don't care whether you're a woman or a man. They don't care if you went to the right schools. None of that matters to the model. What matters to the model is what revenue are you generating on Shopify and Amazon platforms? What's your gross margin look like? And we love the idea that it's not just structured as the invoice funding product is structured like I described earlier, but that it's fair and that someone can come to Clearco, and if they've got a business that's performing well and that's creditworthy, they can be assured that we're likely to provide them capital regardless of all of these other factors that really have nothing to do with what we care most about.
Yeah. Yeah, this is amazing. So looking ahead, it might sound like an odd question, but what kind of excites you? I know fintech is maybe hard to say what's exciting about it, but it's a necessary piece of a business puzzle that you solve. And I find that very unique. But is there anything that really excites you about the future of Clearco? You're newish with the business now. You're certainly taking it down an incredible path. It's very unique than maybe its kind of former founders. And so I find it very interesting. Is this a change that might be happening overall in fintech? Or I just want to know kind of where you see the future, the continued production, but then the future of Clearco.
So I think today, Clearco in some ways is different than the old Clearco, but in some ways very similar. It's similar in that we're trying to serve these founders and owners in the way I've described, providing them flexible, fair capital so they can have a trusted partner of Clearco that's committed to supporting their growth. Now, that was always the goal of Clearco, and that goes back to the founders who started the company back in 2015. So that part hasn't changed. I think what has changed, and this is true, I think, for fintech broadly and tech broadly, is that we live in a different world today, a different macroeconomic environment, a different capital environment. And I think businesses, whether it's the customers we serve or whether it's Clearco itself, we have to be run with a lot of discipline because capital isn't as easy to find as it was. And that's true for our customers, no doubt. Capital is harder to find. It's more expensive. Certainly debt capital is more expensive, but I'd say equity capital is more expensive as well. So what we're trying to do at Clearco today is just run with a lot of focus. And the focus today is on the invoice funding product and with a lot of discipline so that we aren't subject to or we don't give in to kind of the excesses that categorize or characterize the very rapid VC fueled tech boom, some number of years ago. So the market's changed a lot. And the thing that I always come back to is if we want to serve these founders and we want to serve these customers, we need to do it in a sustainable way. And a sustainable way means Clearco has to be profitable and Clearco has to generate free cash flow, because that's how we're going to be in the best position to serve companies like Adventure Challenge and others who are trying to grow their businesses. So if that's your North Star, the best thing Clearco can do is be run with a lot of discipline and make sure that we're doing the same thing that we're asking our customers to do, which is to operate their business intelligently, get to profitability, and be in a position where you're generating free cash flow to fund further expansion.
So let's assume there's a lot of people listening right now that's saying, hey, you know what? I have invoices that need to get paid that are not paid currently, or I see some opportunity in my business. I can get a better deal if I buy in larger quantities, and I have an invoice that needs to get paid. Can you just kind of briefly walk us through? I know there's a process here, but you mentioned that, these invoices literally can be funded in like as little as 24 hours. And so, and I understand we need to share revenue. I think we have to connect, bank accounts, maybe your Shopify store, just so we have an idea of kind of like where you sit. Then what happens after that? Would you upload the invoice into a system? I'm just curious on the process of what happens.
Yeah, so the process is pretty standard. When a customer comes to us and they express an interest in receiving capital from us, we ask them first to connect their revenue accounts. So that's, giving us access to their Amazon and Shopify and other revenue accounts. And that gives us very good insight into how they generate revenue. It gives us very granular view into just the revenue producing capacity of the business. We also ask them to connect their bank accounts. And so that access also provides us further insight into the business. And all this data enables us to come up with the best number of dollars that we can extend to them. So if you say you come to us and you say, I'm interested in the invoice funding product, I have some invoices I want to pay, I'll say, well, connect your revenue accounts, connect your bank accounts. And then I might come back to you and say, okay, I am able, or Clearco is delighted to be able to give you, say, $100 of capacity. And so at that point, you might say, great, $100, I appreciate it. And then 2 days later, you upload an invoice. And so that invoice might be $10. And so you upload that invoice, or we always do some basic analytics on the invoice to make sure it's authentic. We do, there's a KYB process for the vendor that we're paying. And then we wire dollars directly to that supplier or that vendor. So again, could be inventory, could be marketing, could be any number of things. And then as soon as we've done that, a week later, you begin to pay that capital back to us over either 4, 5, or 6 months. And so the beauty of it is you're not using our capital until you need it, right? So you know exactly, well, I am going to fund this invoice. And when I fund that invoice, then the dollars I've taken from Clearco, that's when I'll start paying it back. And then that's when it will actually have a cost for me. So that goes back to what I was discussing earlier. We're not just giving you a dollar amount of cash and then you fund it in an indeterminate way over some number of months. You're matching our capital to a specific business need, something very tangible and discrete. And you're saying, oh, I used Clearco capital. I paid that invoice. I know those goods are on their way to me, or I know that I've paid Meta or I paid Google for marketing spend. And so that's what I think is most appealing to our customers under the invoice funding product is, sure, they have an idea of what they could fund in total from us, but they don't actually start funding until they have a discrete, specific use for the capital.
Right. And I think that's the kind of the big takeaways that I'm getting from today is the fact that, there's an opportunity out there where, you can maybe get involved with inventory, buying a larger amount of inventory and getting a lower cost of goods. And knowing that, and that happens a lot, especially people that are importing from China. A lot of times they say, hey, this MLQ is this, okay, but if you're willing to go to the 1,000 price or the 5,000 price, all of a sudden your cost per unit actually goes down drastically. And then knowing that, that's one opportunity that Clearco can actually help with because, that's the motivation I think that people are listening today. It's like, hey, if you're really trying to increase your profitability, there is a way of doing that by getting the right amount of funding and getting the cost of goods low. In your case, in this particular case, buying from China. But it's same as the marketing side again, or getting the right agency partners. And I think there's technology and there's opportunity out there. It's just like, how do you want to deploy it? So,
yeah, and there's I think Adventure Challenge is a great example where Number one, they reflect a trend we see across our customer base in general, which is a trend we like, where people are trying to diversify and scale their businesses. Right. So they may have started as exclusively online, and then they're adding, say, wholesale revenue. They're starting to do business with Target and Walmart. And any such effort, regardless of what the diversification effort is, it requires working capital at the start. And so these opportunities to diversify, they can, like, the unit economics can be really compelling. The scale opportunities can be really compelling, but usually you need some capital, and Clearco can provide that capital. And when we see businesses like Adventure Challenge doing this and diversifying, like, our view is that's a positive sign, right? That means that they're being thoughtful and they're being disciplined in thinking about, okay, how do I grow my business? I have this incredible online business, but how might I grow it into other channels? And Adventure Challenge obviously becoming that omni-channel provider of the product. And so that's really exciting to us, and we love to be a part of that process.
That's lovely. So before we kind of wrap up for today, what do you think our next steps are for those listening? Let's say people say, hey, you know what? I like what Clearco is all about. I like this opportunity. If they want to learn more about and just, kind of kick the tires a bit and saying, yeah, I may have some invoices, or yes, I wouldn't mind getting involved in more marketing or more inventory, or I have some, maybe it's a seasonality thing where, like, I will need money to buy now for BFCM. And people are buying now for BFCM right now. I know for a fact.
Exactly. Of course, so, it's already begun.
It's already begun. So what's your take of the next steps and follow-ups for those listening today?
Yeah. So the easiest thing to do is just to go to clear.co, CLEAR.co, and sign up, because that's the first thing we ask everyone to do, is just to create an account.
Right.
And there's also a wealth of information on the site, and we have got a lot of really good blog content that we've been producing over the last couple of months that's very substantive. Right. And meant to be very educational. So everything that we've talked about today, our new product versus the old product, Clearco versus, say, Shopify Capital and some of our other peers, like, that is all explained in great detail. And our view is always really simple. We want our customers to be educated, and taking capital from any source is a big deal, and you should treat it with a lot of seriousness. Yeah. It's an important decision. So what we want to do is we want to educate people. And the best way to do that, we think, is visit our site, read our blog content, sign up at clear.co, right, and then let's kick the process forward and figure out if we can find a way to fund you and help you grow.
That's lovely. And it's funny, I was just on, just before recording today, one of the brands I manage, Vanity Planet, for 5 years, is actually one of the logos you have on your homepage. So clearly I must have recommended it to them in the past. And this is lovely. Well, thank you, Andrew, for being so kind with your time and coming on the show today. Thank you, Tim, for sharing the Adventure Challenge. I'm going to make sure all of this goes into the show notes for this episode. And I wish you both continued tremendous success in your endeavors. And once again, thanks for both coming on the show today.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Andrew.
All right. Have a great afternoon. Well, that's it for today's episode. I'd like to thank you personally for being a loyal listener of eCommerce Fastlane. It's my hope that this podcast is offering you a ton of value through growth strategies, tactics, and exclusive insider tips on the best Shopify apps and marketing platforms, all with my personal goal to help you build, manage, grow, and scale a successful and thriving company powered by Shopify. Thanks for investing some time today and listening to the show. I'm so proud and excited that you have a growth mindset and are a constant learner. I truly appreciate you and your entrepreneurial journey. Enjoy the rest of the week and keep thriving with Shopify.